What is going on, all you minties? This is the Uncanny Omar from Near Mint Condition, and today it brings me so much joy to continue talking about my journey with the Judge Dredd complete case files from 2000 AD. So let's get started. Okay, so we are going to be looking at case files 7 through 12. Before getting started, a huge thank you to the folks at 2000 AD for sending us copies of these case files. I was so excited to receive these, and I'm so glad that you all got me hooked on Judge Dredd. So thank you to all of you. Thank you so much to our patrons for making videos like this possible. We have added a brand new end credits for the patrons of that tier. So we do have different tiers on our Patreon. If you want to check that out, that is in the description of the video, the link to our Patreon. But let's go ahead and get started. We got a lot to talk about, and I'll give you a quick little catch up in case you didn't watch my first video. But why haven't you? Just click on the link above. Anyway, I'll put a link somewhere up there. Alright, so the very first thing we're going to be looking at is this Volume 7. And not a lot of men can sport pink, but my boy, Judge Dredd, certainly can. This is what the spine looks like, and you saw all the spines at the beginning of the video. Then here is what the actual design of the book looks like. You know, for the longest time when I would see these, I thought this was a bat symbol. I know, you can make fun of me all you want to. I thought it was some kind of Batman signal or something like that, books were being published in the UK. It was a Batman Judge Dredd crossover. Feel free to make fun of me. It's ridiculous, but it's his helmet that he never takes off. So now I can understand why so many people were upset with the Sylvester Stallone portrayal of the character. So here we have Volume 7, Cry the Werewolf. This storyline is so awesome. You've got artwork in here from Steve Dillon, and also Carlos Esquera returns. So let's talk really quick about Judge Dredd, what he is in case you didn't watch my last video. But like I said, I did put a link above in case you didn't. And really quick, this all takes place in a fictional city, in a fictional dystopian future. It all kicked off in the year 2099, but the real series kicked off in 1977. There's Steve Dillon right here. You can immediately tell his artwork right away. So every year the character ages as well as the story. So we've been following the story from 1977. So it all started in 2099, and it is this future where pretty much Earth has just become a radioactive wasteland, so the populations have just all moved to bigger metropolis cities, known as megacities, if you will. And the story is just centered around one of the biggest ones, and that is Megacity 1, and that is in North America. And then you also here, on the outskirts of Megacity 1, you have the Cursed Earth. So you have mutants and robots all living out there, obviously werewolves. And for each one of these volumes, I'll be talking about just one particular story that at least stayed with me. And to me, this Volume 7 has one of the best jumping on point storylines. And I'll talk about the build as I go through these and how they change too. But one of the things I forgot to mention is that the script is mainly done by T.B. Grover, but really it's just Alan Grant and John Wagner. Both of those guys together. For some reason, I guess they just decided on that name, T.B. Grover. But then later on, they start being credited as Alan Grant and John Wagner. So, but it's both of them writing all of this. All of this is written by both of those guys. So this is the story, let me see if I can find it really quick, that I think is a wonderful introduction to the world of Judge Dredd. If you want to find out what he's about, if you want to see the dark humor that's in here, look no further than the Graveyard Shift found in the Complete Case Files Volume 7, which contain progs 322 to 375 in the year 2105 to 2106. Those are fake years. Hopefully we'll all live to be that old, though. So here we have Graveyard Shift. This, I think, is a wonderful introduction to the characters, what the judges have to deal with, the kind of violence they have to deal with. Not just them, but also focusing on the people that live in the city, how overcrowded it is, and how run down some of the areas are, and why they have to be this force that just pushes the law on people. And you get to find out all of that, I think, through this multi-part storyline. Now, each prog, of course, is around 8 to 10 pages, sometimes a little bit longer, sometimes a little bit. For the most part, I think 8 pages is the shortest one that I remember in here. And most of them are multi-part. But we're still dealing with the events of the previous case files. But I think this is a wonderful introduction to the character for those of you that have been asking me. And this is just my personal opinion. There are better Dreadheads, I think is what they like to call themselves, in my comments area. So those gentlemen or ladies would be able to tell you exactly where is a better jumping on point than this. But I think from what I've read so far, I haven't read America yet, I know, this is probably the best jumping on point that I've read. And it's got wonderful artwork. So let's keep going with the next volume. Here we have Case Files 8. By the way, all of these have been available in America, not through 2000 AD, although they do ship over here, but from IDW. IDW printed their own set of books. And they all look a little bit different in design, but they are the same, from what I understand, the exact same dimensions. And I'll do a little size comparison here in a second with one of these volumes. But here we have Volume 9, and one of the things that you probably noticed is the lack of artists like Boland, Gibbons, and McMahon. So that is kind of sad to see them go, especially after reading the Judge Death storyline with Brian Boland. But there's still some epic artists in here. I love the Skater storyline. You have Ron Smith, Ian Gibson. Gosh, so many artists that I've discovered through this work of Judge Dredd. And then you're also some other artists that you're familiar with that have drawn American comics, because that's what the DC Comics did, was pull a lot of this talent from 2000 AD and started hiring them for not just Vertigo books, but ongoing comic book stories. I mean, most of these people have worked on Batman. Most of these people have worked on Superman. So it's pretty interesting to see them start off here. At least I assume they started off here. Alright, so the storyline I'm going to be talking about here is, let me find it. It all starts with this little prologue right here that is drawn by the phenomenal It's amazing to see Steve Dillon's artwork. I love that guy's art, and it's really cool to see like him just progress as an artist through these pages of Judge Dredd. But this is the storyline that I was going to talk about. It is the City of the Damned, which actually is a follow-up to the Judge Child quest that was found in the Case Files number 4. So this is where Judge Dredd and Judge Anderson travel in time to 2020. So they propel to the future. And they discover that Owen Chrysler is... well, never mind. I will let you find out exactly what happens, because this is a really cool storyline that does end up wrapping up some of the loose ends that were from that previous storyline, the Judge Child's quest. And this is the first time that we've seen this element that, you know, you've seen in most comic books, I'm sure, the time travel element being used in a Judge Dredd comic, at least from what I've read. I haven't read any of the magazines or any of the other spin-offs or one-shots, but from what I've read, this storyline right here, City of the Damned, introduces us to that plot device of time travel. You also get to see the origin of the bionic eyes, but I will let you find out for yourself what that's about. But just look at this amazing artwork here. All of this, by the way, I found out is originally printed in black and white, so you're not missing out on anything. They're not taking away any of the colors, and we'll actually talk a little bit about that when we get to volumes 10 and 11. Sorry, Case Files 10 and 11. But let's look at the next volume. So here we have the complete Case Files volume number 9. And I love that each of these are changing in color. So volume number 9, we kick off with this character that isn't really important at first, but it is the Midnight Surfer. He plays an important part later on. Again, you've got artwork in here from the co-creator, Carlos Esquera and Steve Dillon, as well as a newcomer that is not a newcomer to me, but you also get Barry Kitson's artwork in here. We'll look at that here in a second, but what I wanted to talk about is this one story that stood out to me, and it's only 8 pages. Let me find it. Okay, I did have to point out about this superhero named Mega Man. It's so ridiculous, but that's not the story I was going to talk about. I almost cheated and actually used 2 stories, but no. Most of this volume has just a collection of short story. That's mainly what's collected in here. It seems like there's something building up to something big, but all of this is mainly just a collection of just little mini 8 pages storylines, or sometimes there's a couple of 2-parters. And the one that stood out to me is right here. This is a letter from a Democrat. This is just 8 pages. And it is the story in which Judge Dredd guns down a pro-democracy group, which has taken over a broadcasting station. And then in between the storyline is a letter that one of the protesters wrote to her family prior to this event. Now, what's important about this, it's really a reality check as to the worship of these judges. Because, you know, when we're reading these stories, you get to see their side a lot more than you get to see the opposing side, if you will. And I think that's really important. It is so interesting to see it, and it almost makes you reconsider how you viewed not just Judge Dredd, but the entire system, all of the Justice Department. Like, a lot of it has dark humor in it, you know, because we think that dictatorship stomping on its citizens, it's hilarious. But then you get a story like this, in which Dredd is just... it makes him look like a villain, and it makes the entire system look broken. But damn, was that story 8 pages long, so freaking powerful. It stood out from this entire book right here. And as far as the price point of these for people in Europe or in the UK, or if you want to import them, they're mostly £15.99 and up to $18.99. As far as the page count, we're looking at 336 pages, all the way up until 386 pages. Again, all of this, John Wagner and Alan Grant writing it. This is an awesome storyline, but not the one I'm going to be talking about. There is a pretty interesting story in here about Stan Lee, the martial artist with the, the Iron Fist or whatever. But I do have a question for people that have read this or people familiar with that. Is that loosely based on Marvel's Stan Lee? I say Marvel like it belongs to Marvel, but the man Stan Lee? I was just curious. But this is the one I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to be talking about The Art of Kenny Hu. And I think this is the one that spoke to me the most. I'm sure there's better stories in here for people, but to me, this is interesting because this tells the story of an aspiring comic book artist, Kenny Hu, who travels to Mega City 1, is eventually, like, Judge Dredd from the get-go hates this guy. He picks on him. He's like, look, you're only allowed 24-hour clearance. That's it. That's the only amount of time that you can be in the city because I know you're here for nothing but trouble. And Kenny Hu just wants to get a job at the company, like the big one company, to become a comic book artist. So he finally makes it there. He is let inside. The editors look at his art and they pretty much say, look, kid, you're not what we're looking for. Just go somewhere else. And he gets just rejected, so he goes out drinking. And eventually he sees his artwork being shown on the screen. So he goes and confronts the editor. So the editor just tells him some bullcrap story about not really stealing his artwork, but just stealing his style. And there's no copyright on his style. So it's a big dilemma for him. And then you start to question, like, these things, because this happens, right? One could say, yes, it's art inspired by art, but there's a lot of cases of people stealing someone's style and then actually stealing pictures and claiming it to be their own. So it's a pretty interesting take on that type of storyline. And like I said, there's plenty of other stories in here that I'm sure are more memorable to people, but that's the one that stood out to me. Again, just filled with great stories and awesome, fabulous artwork that for the first time I am looking at. So it's really cool. Each of the books, by the way, towards the end has some of the covers for the 2000 AD right here. They're all in black and white so far, but that's about to change here in a little bit. Here we have the Complete Case Files Volume 11, and now you're starting to see color, whereas before on the covers you saw them in black and white. And here we're starting to see covers. Actually, this is from inside of the book. But not yet. The inside of the book is not in color. Not yet. We'll get there with the next volume. And I think it's such a cool transition. But some of the pages are in this kind of whitewash. So it looks like they were originally colored. And then we go back to black and white. But this stuff right here looks like it was originally in color. So I'm curious if that's how they appeared, or if it's this whitewash kind of tone that they have, because sometimes it's a little hard to read what's in there. So I love this artwork right here. This guy, this is not the story I'm going to be talking about, but this is the Simp storyline, who later appears in the next case file. But this is Cliff Robinson's artwork, and Cliff Robinson reminds me a lot of Brian Boland, and I'm sure that's a common thing with a lot of people that they see. But I really enjoy his art. Once Brian Boland left, I looked forward to having Cliff Robinson on art. But the main story arc I'm going to be talking about takes about more than half of the book to tell. It's a huge, long story arc, and it's right here. Oz. So all of this is that story arc. So here we go with this particular story. So Dredd has to go to Australia, and then he has to arrest this fugitive known as Chopper. And his true target is Morton Judd. The character of Chopper has appeared before. And I don't know if he comes back or not, because it kind of leaves it open-ended towards the end of this, and we still have a little bit of the aftermath in the next case file. But I thought that was really cool that this storyline was so long. Like, I'll be honest, some of it was a little boring, and then it picks back up. But what I mainly enjoyed about it was just the different art styles that were all through this one huge ongoing story. Because different artists, there's like 6 different artists that draw just Oz. So I thought that was really cool. But it seems like they use this huge long storyline to kind of introduce elements that are going to be used later on. And I don't know if that's true or not. It feels like they're building up, and honestly, it kind of has been feeling like that since case file number 9. Just little by little, but in this one, they kind of throw a lot of things at you that look like could build up to something bigger. So that's what I enjoyed about this, and of course, all the different artists. Like I said, the story's had its ups and downs, mostly ups though. So that's always good whenever you're doing a review or an overview of a book. It's nice to hear. But one thing I will say is that for all of these up to case file 11, the paper is this thick matte paper. I mean, it's nice. The artwork stands out really good. Even though it is soft cover, all of these are soft cover. I don't think there's much of gutter loss. Even with that glued binding, the way the pages are laid out, there's very minimal gutter loss. Just using this 2-page spread as an example of what they look like. Like I said, very minimal gutter loss. Honestly, I've seen hardcover omnibus that have more gutter loss than these books do. Immediately, you're going to notice the thickness of volume 12 compared to the rest of these. However, this volume over here has about 370 something pages, while this one has 332. So how is that possible? Well, that's easy. That's because now they're using this thinner glossy paper instead of that thick matte paper. And yes, you are seeing color. You're seeing color on the cover, and you're seeing color in the inside of the Judge Dredd book. And one more thing I was going to say is that even though they use all the artists down here, or all the creators are down here, they give them credit, that is not all of the creators, by the way. This is just a small taste of who's in here. And we have Glenn Fabry. Oh, the guy that drew the covers for Preacher. His artwork is in here, and it's so awesome to see, like, older sequential... I say older, I really don't know what years this took place in. I assume the 90s, maybe early 90s or late 80s. But it's nice to see, like, just sequential art from him. And then there's a surprise artist that they didn't even credit at the beginning. Now, the storyline I'm going to talk about here, though, is Full Metal Jacket. Alright, Full Metal Jacket. So, one of the things I was going to say is that the stories towards the beginning bounce back between color and black and white pages, and you'll see that within these stories here too. But then towards the end, we get everything is in color, every single page. So, this is about a family, a mega city family that is torn apart, when one of the youth is getting deeper and deeper with a gang. He's all about the gang culture. This is the one that stood out to me because this reminded me of 80s type of movies. And this is the story... And honestly, this whole reading experience has reminded me that, holy crap, this is RoboCop. And I'm not saying this is ripping RoboCop off. As a matter of fact, I'm kind of saying the exact opposite. RoboCop borrowed a lot of elements from Judge Dredd. And I didn't really see it when I was doing the reading the first 6 volumes. And I saw it a little bit when I was reading the Graveyard Shift storyline. But I think with this one here, and it's only 5 parts, that's the one that I was like, oh man, they did really borrow a lot, for RoboCop. Like the setting, the dark humor, the characters that RoboCop fights. So I find that pretty interesting. The other thing I was going to say is that this was a nice surprise. Okay, so we have, like I mentioned, I was really looking forward to this. Glenn Fabry doing artwork, sequential artwork. Love it. I think it's great. But then there's another artist. You have Liam Sharp, who of course blew up with Wonder Woman Rebirth. But no, he's not who I'm talking about. Right here. Immediately I recognized that face, and I thought, wait a minute, did Alan Davis? So this is Alan Davis and Mark Farmer. They have a story in here. That is so wicked. I love it. So if you're into dark humor, real awesome, brutal violence, this is it. This is Judge Dredd. I had so much fun reading these books. Seriously, getting into these last year and then this year, finishing out this next set, has been such an amazing ride. Each one of these provided a different type of just story, and it's one long ongoing story, and I love the way that it ages in real time. So, Dredd, he's getting older, and I can't wait to see where this goes. So, that, as they say, is that. The IDW versions of some of these books are still available from our sponsor, CheapGraphicNovels.com, your online source for collected editions up to 50% off retail price. Cheap Graphic Novels prides itself on excellent packaging, so your stuff gets to you in excellent condition, and they have amazing customer service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And for all you Minties that are watching, if you're a first-time customer, don't forget to mention that Near Mint Condition sent you their way for a promotional credit on free shipping on your next order. Now, this is only for U.S. customers. CheapGraphicNovels.com, your source for the hottest books with deep discounts, customer service, and excellent shipping that will keep you coming back for more. And that was it! That was my experience with volumes 7 through 12 of this wonderful series that you all have been telling me about for a long time. So I'm ready to dive in some more with the further volumes, or what else should I read? Should I read any Judge Anderson or any of the other spin-off titles? Please let me know all in the comments down below. And as promised, I will check out that documentary, Future Shock, I think is what you all told me it was called. Regardless, I will find it and I will watch it because I'm hooked on this series. Ups and downs, but so many more ups. It was amazing. Again, thank you all so much for watching. Please don't forget to hit that like button. Ring that bell for notifications to let you know when our videos are going live. Speaking of live, we'll be back tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time talking about WandaVision Episode 5. That is Amanda and I will be doing a Friday night show reviewing WandaVision. And then I will be back at 11 o'clock in the morning Eastern Standard Time with the live Q&A. And by the way, don't forget to check out the awesome credits now that we have towards the end of the video for our amazing patrons. Thank you to all of our patrons. You all make videos like this possible. Thank you again to the folks at 2000 AD for sending us copies of these books. More importantly, please everybody, stay healthy, stay safe, and I am the law.